help me welcome the original lead singer of the Zombies, the voice of the Zombies, the voice of the Basic Zombies, Colin Blunstone. Thank you for being here, sir.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
So glad to have you with us. This is how uniquely genuine and kind this man is. I come in and I usually say to anyone backstage, hey, do you need anything? What can I do? He said it to me. What do you need? What do you need? No. This is about you. And then he poked his head out and he said, I genuinely thought maybe we'd have 10 people here for this. To give you an idea of how humble this man is. We got a couple more than 10 here, sir. Just a couple more.
Yeah. It's fantastic. Thank you so much for coming, everybody. Thank you.
After the years you've been in the business, and even saying that as we walked in, you thought there'd only be a few people here. A few people. I speak English, I promise. I've ruined it for us, but I speak it. When you walk out and you see fans crammed into this room to hear you talk, when you walk out on stage and you see all the fans in the audience waiting for you, at this point of your career, does it still mean the same? Does it mean more? How has the emotion changed for you with your connection with your audience?
I think in some ways it means more because when we started, when I recorded She's Not There as the first record for the Zombies, I was 18 and...
just a baby.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know what was going on. It was an extraordinary experience going from being in an amateur band in a little rural town of St. Albans, and the next thing we know, we're touring the world and we're playing in New York and places I'd only ever dreamed of. So I don't think I really understood what was going on at 18, but I always thought, and I think most people in the 60s always thought that a career in the music business would be 3 or 4 years.
Sure.
And then you got on with the rest of your life. It was going to be a wonderful adventure, touring the world with your pals, playing the music you love, and it would last 3 or 4 years. And here I am, 65 years, something like that. And I have to pinch myself every time I wake up in the morning and then realise that this wonderful business is still putting up with my presence. And so when we walk out here, I just said I thought there was going to be 10 or 12 people. I'm constantly amazed, but in a very wonderful way.
When I get to talk to folks like yourself that have done so much for music, and which in turn means you've done so much for people because of your music. Music connects so deeply. Humans connect. We all connect to it. I mean, creatures in general, all of us. Anything that walks or breathes. There's videos of animals that start dancing and having fun to music. It's universal. It's a universal language. When someone like yourself, who has done so much and has meant so much and achieved so much into music in general, yet you are still so humble. You are still so truly in your core gracious for what, as a human, how do you remain that way? Because with what you've done, you could be on the other side of that coin. I think sometimes we expect rock stars and legends to kind of flip and be too good. But you are still so kind and so humble and so genuine.
Well, thank you very much.
You really are.
Can I just answer in 2 ways? And I'll just tell you that most of the musicians that I meet who have been around for a long time are really, really lovely people. And that's why they've stuck around for a long time. People won't work with aggressive, moody, egotistical artists. They have short careers. But the people who've stuck around, not all of them, but most of them are really nice people. But speaking personally, I come from a very grounded background. My family would never let me get carried away. Believe me.
Bring you back down to earth.
Oh, yeah. I get home and first I walk through the door and they say, have you taken the dustbins out?
But I'm not here, you're not taking the dustbins out.
And it's true, it's how you're brought up and how you live with your family now. And we don't have any airs and graces in my family.
So you originally, and please correct me if I misstep in any way, your original audition for the Zombies was as guitar player, not lead vocals, is that correct?
Absolutely.
How does that transition? How do you go from just wanting to be, and I say just, no disrespect, the guitar to being front and center?
Well, I mean, starting right from the beginning, I went to an all-boys school. It was very strict, and we sat in alphabetical order. This is just how lucky it was, really. The guy in front of me was called Paul Arnold. Because it was a strict school, we only went by our second names. He was Arnold, I was Blunstone. Arnold knew a guy, didn't go to our school, knew a guy called Rod Argent, who wanted to put a band together.
A guy, just a guy.
Yeah. It's just so much coincidence. And he said to Paul Arnold, "You've made an electric bass in woodwork. Never played one, but you made an electric bass. Would you like to be in the band?" That was his audition. I'm sitting behind Paul Arnold, and he turned around to me and he said, "You've got a guitar, haven't you?" And I thought it was a loaded question, I'm really honest. And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "You want to be in a band?" And that was my audition. At that point, I was the guitarist in the Zombies band. Well, it wasn't called the Zombies then. And so I turned up at the first rehearsal. And I should explain also that I played a lot of rugby. And when I turned up at the first rehearsal, I had a broken nose and 2 black eyes. So, 2 black eyes, broken nose, and I was strapped right across my face. And they were all bloody scared of me. Rod told me, he said, "For God's sake," he'd never met me, "For God's sake, I hope he's not in the band."
No, he's the bouncer. He's just here for security.
So anyway, that's how we got together. Wow. And just very quickly, we only did an instrumental. It was an old classic called Malagueña, and Rod was going to be the singer. Da 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 da, something like that. And I had to strum 2 chords, which I thought I did with authority and grace.
You delivered those 2 chords.
Yes, it's very, very simple. And Rod did nothing because he was the lead singer. Except we had a break in the first rehearsal. I'm going around the houses here, but this is how...
Oh, please.
We had a break in the first rehearsal, and he went over to a broken down old piano in the corner over there. It was just chance. And we were really ordinary. And he played Nut Rocker by B. Bumble and the Stingers, which is a rock take on a classical piece. And at 15, he was still a fabulous keyboard player. And I went over, I didn't know his name, and I went over to him and I said, "Whoever you are, you should be in the band, you shouldn't be singing." And he said, "No, it's a rock band, we've got to just have guitars." And that was the end of the conversation. At the end of the rehearsal, I was putting my guitar away, and I just, to myself, I sang all the time, but to myself. And I sang a Ricky Nelson song, and I think it was "It's Late." And Rod heard me, and he said, "I'll tell you what, if you'll be the singer, I'll play keyboards." Oh. And that essentially was how the whole thing came. And it was all chance.
At age 15.
Those are my favorite stories, though.
It's so strange.
There are the moments where the band is put together by an agency and it's 100 people audition, and that's a wonderful story as well. But when you come to a band like the Zombies, that obviously we all know and love, and you had such a monster career, so many huge hits, to know it came down to the fact that your last name starts with a B.
Yeah.
It's true. It's absolutely true.
If you would have been Dunstone, probably it would have been asked. You're too far removed.
I know, it's absolutely true. I would have never thought in a million years that I would be a professional musician. I always loved music, but I thought, that's just a dream.
Sure.
But even when we got the band together, I still thought it was a dream. But we won out of the blue, we won a big rock and roll competition. And that's the first time, I didn't say anything, but it's the first time I thought, hey, maybe there's a way
something
ahead.
here.
Yeah.
What were you called originally, if not the Zombies?
Well, I mean, we didn't have a name for quite a long time, I've got to be honest, but you get to that point where you
have to
have a name, and we went through 2 names, absolutely terrible. First one was the Mustangs. I must apologise. The first one was the Mustangs. It didn't last very long. We realised there were hundreds of bands in the UK called the Mustangs. And the second one, I must doubly apologise because it was my idea. Thinking about The Searchers was a John Wayne film, and the band took the name from The Searchers. Well, there was a film called The Sundowners.
Yeah.
I can't remember who the stars are now, but I thought, well, film, Searchers, film, Sundowners. No. So we were at Sundowners for about 2 weeks. And then,
2 whole weeks, though.
2 whole weeks, yeah. In those days, that was quite a success. And then the original bass player in the band, Arnold, out of the blue, he came up with the name of the Zombies, and I had absolutely no idea what a zombie was. I still don't know what a zombie is.
Probably better that way.
Yeah. But it was catchy, and it caught on, and the other guys all loved it. I thought it was a bit strange, to be honest, but it stuck, and that's how we became the Zombies. The guy who thought of the name of Zombies, Arnold, he's the only guy we allowed to leave the band. He wanted to be a doctor, and he didn't have time for rehearsals, and he's now a doctor in Edmonton. And whenever we go up there, he always comes along, and we always get a spot. He loves it. I mean, he's a doctor, and he's hugely successful, but he loves to have a spotlight on him as the original bass player. He stands up and takes it down.
I mean, he was the one in front of you that turned around and asked.
Absolutely. Without him, I'd be nothing.
That's actually a fun interlude. Did you have, what do you think you would have been? What were your visions? Do you know where you're
Oh, I think if I'd have been really successful, I would have been a clerk.
Oh.
I have no idea, honestly. I thought school went on forever. I wanted to go to art school.
Art school?
Because I wasn't bad at art, and I wanted to go to art school. And I said to my father, I'd really like to go to art school. And he said, Colin, all they do there is drink beer and chase women. And I wasn't sure if he was trying to put me off.
Tell me more.
I thought, this sounds right up my street. It's a shame we have to actually do art as well. I think he was saying no, that's no. But that was my only idea.
So, what do you think, or what did he say when you became a rock star? Because goodness knows you don't drink beer or chase women when you're in the music industry.
I mean, I tried to keep the music down to a minimum when we got into the beer and the women, it was very enjoyable. It always surprised me because after he put me off art school, a year later we had to sign record contracts, and we were so young, our parents had to countersign it. My father didn't give a second thought of it. He countersigned it, and I thought, I kept it quiet, but I thought, what do you think bands do? They chase women and they drink beer.
Better off if he went to art school, to be quite honest.
I know, yeah.
So when you said you won a rock contest, and that's when you started to see a future for it.
Yeah.
Did all the guys see the future? Did you guys, or was it
we didn't talk about it. We didn't talk about it, but maybe, perhaps they did. The Zombies are a funny band in that I don't think they talked a lot, certainly not about serious things. They just didn't communicate that much. I mean, I've known them all my life, and there's some of them I couldn't tell you anything about them at all. They're really nice blokes, but they're quite quiet and introverted.
That's all right.
Yeah. When you're in a bus for 24 hours a day, for 7 days a week, give me an introvert every day of the week. Yeah.
I'll take the quiet guy next to me.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
So, so you recognize there might be a future at this point. You win this rock contest. When did you guys start to really feel the commercial potential success of the band versus, and I don't want to be rude, but versus a band that's going to play for a couple years, as you mentioned, you know, you're going to have 3 years of this and then go. When did it become more apparent that there was actual runway?
Well, we decided to become a professional band without having a record contract or making a
You
record.
just decided to. Yeah.
We were 18 years old.
Perfect.
That's what we were going to do. And we had no agent, no manager, no nothing. I don't know what was going to happen. But we were introduced to a producer who got us a deal with Decca Records. From memory, I think it was just a single. And we were having a pep talk, as opposed to albums and things like that. And we were having a pep talk with this producer who's called Ken Jones. And in the middle of the pep talk, he said, you know, the record session's coming up in a couple of weeks' time. You could write something for the session if you wanted to. Because in those days, the Beatles were breaking the mold, but generally bands recorded songs written by other people. But the Beatles had changed all that. Anyway, he said you could write something, and I didn't give it a second thought. He went on and spoke about other things. But Rod Argent and Chris White, the bass player there, they took notice of that. And they absolutely stunned me. A few days, 3 or 4 days later, they came back with 2 songs. I had no idea they could write songs. And Rod,
Because you didn't talk.
because and Rod had written "She's Not There," and I thought sounds pretty good for someone I didn't even know could write songs. And so we went into the studio in Decca Studios in West Hampstead to record. I think we recorded 4 or 5 songs. We recorded very, very fast. And in those days, it was very fashionable to record in the evenings and through the night. You didn't record in the day, that wasn't cool. And so our session wouldn't work for me now. Listen, after 7 o'clock, I'm asleep. But we actually got there at 7 o'clock. And it was a little bit of a mistake because the engineer, who was a very successful recording engineer, unfortunately had been at a wedding all day. He'd been at a wedding all day and he was absolutely blind drunk. And worse than that, he was really aggressive, really aggressive. So we go in at 7 o'clock, 18 years old, it's our first professional adventure in a studio. We put on these headphones, sometimes known as cans. And this guy I couldn't tell you the language that was coming really loud. F, C. I thought, taking into account I've been in the business for 65, 70 years or something, it's ironic that within 10 minutes of being in the studio, I was thinking, this is not for me. This guy's mad. This is not for me. And he was just completely drunk. But then we had a bit of luck. He collapsed.
He went down. Start code. Yeah.
He collapsed flat on his back, and we had to carry him out of the studio. This is quite an introduction to recording. First time in the studio.
First time in the studio.
We carried him out of the studio. One zombie on one arm, one zombie on another arm, zombie on another leg. 2 flights of stairs into a black London taxi, and I never saw him again. And his assistant took over. And I don't know if you all know this name, but his assistant was Gus Dudgeon.
Yes.
Who went on to produce all of Elton's early albums,
Yeah.
David Bowie, Kiki D, so many famous people. And that was Gus Dudgeon's first session ever.
Was the zombie.
And it was the zombie's first session.
Because the other guy collapsed.
Yeah. And so you see, alphabetical order.
Yeah,
Guy collapses.
you're really lucky to be here, man. That's all I'm hearing.
I don't want to give you the impression this has all been planned, because it hasn't. It's just happened chance, or whatever the word is. So Gus took over, and we recorded She's Not There, and that was it. It was a huge hit all around the world. So I think by now I was just 19, and suddenly it was a hit around the world, and Christmas Day 1964, we opened in New York, Murray the K's Christmas show, Brooklyn Fox. I don't know if you can imagine what this is like. We're waiting in the wings. We're children. And it's packed, it's packed. And do you know who we had to follow on the show? Patti LaBelle. Can you imagine? She brought the house down, because we did 8 shows a day. You just sang a couple of songs, you know, on, off, and the next game would come on. And Patti LaBelle brought the house down every show, and we had to follow her. So the old knees were knocking a bit, but it was okay. You know, we were all right.
Was that? Did you feel like it, to a certain extent, with all that you'd been through, was that really your baptism? Was that your trial by fire?
It was a bit of a baptism of fire, yeah, it really was. And you know, because of America, and I'm not just saying this, I know this is a predominantly American audience, but America is the goal of all British musicians. America is the beginning of the blues, jazz, rhythm and blues, rock and roll, all our rock and roll heroes. I'm sure any British band will tell you this, you know, Little Richard, Elvis Presley, Chuck Berry, all of them, you know, Miles Davis, all these wonderful musicians. We're in awe of them, absolutely. And it's very confusing because with the British invasion, of course, I can't tell you, walking down the street, you just have your shirt ripped off you and your hair cut off. And you're trying to say, we're here because we absolutely adore American musicians. And in our own way, we were being adored, I suppose.
Yeah, of course you were.
Well, lynched, actually. Is a good
Slightly aggressive.
we could say adored, it sounds better. When we were at the Brooklyn Fox, we couldn't go out of the building at all. It was surrounded by people. And our lead guitarist, Paul Atkinson, he just said, look, I'm going out. And he went out the stage door, and the crowd pushed him up against a plate glass window, and they ripped his shirt off him. And the police came in, and they got him out, and they said, okay, we're doing this once, we're not doing it again. Tell everyone in the show they need to stay in, we're not doing this again. So it was exciting, it's bloody dangerous.
That has to be surreal at the same point at that age.
It is surreal. It's a funny way, it is surreal because you're very young. But when you're young, you tend to take these things a bit for granted.
Sure.
You do. This is, okay, today we're going to be mobbed and chased down the road and people are going to tear our clothes off. Okay, and what's happening tomorrow? And well, I'm buying new clothes, that's what it's saying.
I think all of us had that experience in 18, 19. You know, mom had her clothes torn off as you're running down the street. That has got to be also, it's intoxicating, I would imagine, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
The fame of that instance.
It can be a little bit. And I see, this is kind of the difficult bit because if you like, we had a number one. In Cashbox, we were number one, which is not that. In Billboard, which people mostly go by now, I think it was 2 or 3. But let's go by Cashbox. And the next record was number 6. And you can probably guess what was happening after that. So, in a way, I don't want to blow our own trumpet because we had nothing to do with this. It happened to us.
Sure.
But we started at the top at 18 years old, and then we gradually slipped down the pole. And then within 2 or 3 years, you know, it started to be a bit of a struggle, and it can be quite challenging.
But you're clearly, let me rephrase that. The popularity at the time, though you say you started at the top and worked your way down, you're still here, right? We're still talking about the Zombies today. They're still your Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I mean, there's still such great recognition for it. What is the longevity? What do you accredit the longevity to?
Well, with the Zombies, I'll be honest with you. There's an element of mystery with the Zombies because
no one talks.
So,
nobody talks.
Yeah, because no one talks. Yeah. But actually, it is really true. The band finished in 1967. I know Time of the Season, I think was a hit in 68 or 69.
Yeah, after.
We were all doing different things by then. And the band didn't play for years. I went on and had a bit of a solo career. It wasn't successful in America, but it was in the UK and Europe. But I actually finished in 74. I didn't play on the road after 74. Rod went on and formed Argent, but he didn't play after about 74, 75. We all went into different parts of the business. And then by chance, and while all this was going on, we kind of forgot about the Zombies. But people were saying there's a lot of interest. People like Tom Petty, Dave Grohl, Susanna Hoffs are starting to talk about the Zombies. And when you're 3,000 miles away, you think, well, that's nice, but it's not real, if you know what I mean. And it wasn't until we started back on the road, and I started by chance, a guy called Don Airy, who's in Deep Purple. He's a keyboard player in Deep Purple. And he started calling me and saying, I knew him vaguely, and he said, you know, you should be out playing. I was doing jingles, I was singing with people like Alan Parsons and whatnot, but I wasn't playing live. And he kept ringing me and saying, you should be out playing. Well, and I was going, it's too late for me. I was no longer 18 at this point. And
you were an old man at that point. Yeah.
I was already an old man. What does that make me now?
Seasoned.
Seasoned. I'm very seasoned.
Iconic.
I had a habit every night of drinking a couple of cans of Stella Artois. I just found it, led into the evening very well. And I drank a couple of cans of Stella Artois. Don Airy, who's in Deep Purple, called me again and he said, you should be out on the road. 2 cans of Stella Artois. You're right! Yes! And he put a band together for me, and within 2 or 3 weeks, we were out on the road. And he said, you don't need to come to rehearsals. I'll put the band together. Come along to soundcheck. And I hadn't sung from 74 to 97, 74, 84,
25.
94, 23 years. And I wasn't so much nervous as intrigued. I didn't know when I picked the mic up, would a sound come?
And what would that instrument be at that age too? Like, what would your instrument be if it shifted?
Absolutely, the voice could have changed. I remember the first gig. It was in a northern town, Newcastle, which is a lovely place, but has a reputation as being pretty tough. I mean, I'm sure you have tough towns in America that have reputations.
One or two.
Yeah. Newcastle's a shipbuilding town, and people tell you what they think. And that was our first gig. And I had more than 2 Stella Artois that night. And it went
with courage.
Absolutely. I had lots of courage. And it went really well. And that was a song. And 2 years later, Don Airy had moved on. He was controlling the band, really. And Don Airy had moved on. And I had people just coming in for the night to play keyboards. And this particular guy came in. It was quite a prestigious gig in London. And he came in. He didn't really know my name. He didn't know any of my songs. I'd never met him before. And we were going to play to a packed place in London. He didn't know any of the music. We got through it. And when I came off, my heart was going so fast. I thought, if I do this anymore, I am going to have a heart attack. And so I rang Rod Argent, who was a very successful producer at this time, and I said, Rod, listen, I'm in a spot. I've got 6 more dates to do. Any chance you could help me out? Because otherwise I'm going to die. And he said,
not to exaggerate, but...
he said, well, we can't be having that. Yeah. I'll come out and do the 6 dates, but I don't want to do any more. And so he came out and did the 6 days. And he loved it so much, we did it for the next 25 years.
You mentioned, to step back briefly, you mentioned that you guys had already separated at time of the season. What was it like on the outside looking back in as time of the season becomes what it is? And you're no longer a band. That's got to be kind of a wild experience.
It was very, very strange. When the band finished, it's not widely known this, but writers in a band will probably earn at least twice as much as the people in the band who don't write. Often it's more than that, because if she's up there, it's covered by lots of people. The writer keeps earning money, but the band doesn't.
Mailbox money.
Absolutely, yeah. And so 3 of the guys, myself, Hugh Grundy and Paul Atkinson, because we had been managed in a very strange and peculiar way that was very common in those days, we were absolutely stone broke. We had no money at all. So when the band finished, not only was I was driving home from the meeting when we decided to finish the band. I was driving on my own. I thought, I was 21 or 22, and I thought, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? I have no idea, and I had no money. So what I did, I got on the phone and I just started ringing people, anybody, and I'm working up to the time of the season. I got offered a job.
We just want to hear you talk. I don't care what you talk about. We just want to hear you talk, sir.
Okay. Well, I got offered a job in an insurance office.
Real rock star stuff.
Real
rock star
This is
stuff.
bizarre. And I didn't have a suit, so I had to go. I bought a suit, a pinstripe suit, and I went. It's in the centre of London, very, very busy, and I worked. When I got up there, they introduced me to the department where I was going to work, and it was the burglary department. The burglary department, and I thought, do we arrange burglaries? This is a little strange.
Just a bit of burgling,
Yeah. But apparently we insured against burglaries.
That's disappointing.
And as a rock and roll singer, I had absolutely no idea what to do. And so after all the niceties of saying hello to everyone, one moment the phone rang on my desk. And I can't tell you, I had to answer it. And this guy's going to ask me an insurance question. I have no education at all on this. I can't remember what he said, but I got a pretty good idea what my answer was. What? I'll put you on to someone else. Well, actually, the good thing about the music business is it teaches you above all else to bullshit. It's a qualification that's hard-earned, but it's a worthwhile qualification.
It really is.
It is.
It comes in handy many times.
Yeah.
There's lots of opportunities.
Absolutely. So, as an insurance clerk, I think I was vaguely successful, but mostly based on bullshit. So, in the middle of my career as a clerk in the burglary department, I start getting messages, time of the seasons is going up the American charts, and I'm like, oh, come on, don't be, it's over. The Zombies, you're hallucinating. The Zombies is over, end, it's finished. It went up again this week in the charts, went up again, went up. It's number bloody 1. I was earning so little money as a clerk that by the time I paid my train fare and food and stuff, I was actually working at a loss. So it was almost like being back in the Zombies again, because I was still broke. So that's time of the season. I mean, it was like waking from a dream. I thought the Zombies was over, and then suddenly it was the #1 hit record. And then people started calling me to record again. And one guy in particular was a guy called Mike Hurst, and he just produced all the early Cat Stevens records. I've never known whether these records were hits in America, but in the UK they were very big. And it was Matthew and Son, I'm Gonna Get Me a Gun, and I Love My Dog. I'm not sure if they were hits in America. I think maybe, were they? Were they hits? Well, Mike Hurst was a producer, and he was very, very good. And he said, I want to produce you. And so what I did was, after my day in the burglary office, burglary department, I'm still dressed in the pinstripe suit, and I go off to the studio, Olympic Studios, where the Stones were recording. I tried to sort of hide from all that. And he would record tracks, and I would sing on top of them, and that's how I started back in the business. But he was adamant, he wanted to record She's Not There Again. This is my new career. And I said, are you sure we should do She's Not There, with my name? I've already done it with the Zombies. And so they decided to change my name to Neil MacArthur.
Really?
Don't ask me where the name came from. When people would say to me, Neil, I never knew if it was a verb or a noun. It was very tricky. That only lasted for a year. Thank God. My knees were giving my... I have really bad knees. I've only got half a knee on this side. And it's probably because of that.
Because of all the Neil.
Yeah. And then after a year, I was coming back from a party with Chris White, original bass player, and he said, man, forget about the Neil. I was all for that. Forget about the Neil. Come and record with Chris and I. As a solo singer, and we'd like to do an album with you. And then I did my first album, which was called 1 Year. And from that album, from that album, there was a big hit in America. Unfortunately, it was, sorry, a big hit in the UK. Unfortunately, it wasn't a hit in the US. But I want you all to know that I don't hold you personally responsible.
You guys are also doing some new stuff. And by new stuff, I mean some good old stuff. Let's talk about this for a moment.
Well, absolutely. The Zombies now have a record label, Beechwood Park Records, and we've had one reissue this year, a remastered version in mono of Odyssey and Oracle, and this is the second issue this year, which is our first album, Begin Here, but this is an amalgamation of the English release and the American release. There were different track listings, because in England they didn't put the hits on albums in those days for some reason, they didn't, but in America they did. But this is a combination of the American and the English album, so this is our first album ever. It's been remastered. I believe this comes out in two weeks' time.
2 weeks' time.
But we do have CDs.
But it is on board as a little
Yes,
gift
there are
to the
some
Flower
in
Power
the shop.
Cruisers.
In the
You
shop.
want to buy it, you can. The album itself is on their website. The actual vinyl is on the website, but there are CDs available on board if you're interested. What made you guys want to re-release? What made you want to go?
Well, I think to a large extent with bands, you're governed by the record company's decisions, really. Although it is our label, we have to use professional people. I mean, I know as much about the record industry as I do the burglary department. And so
which is a lot.
Getting back to bullshit.
Yeah.
So you have to take their input, and there's a huge interest in the Zombies' career, and so it was decided it would be a really good idea to reissue these records. At the time, it was all very rushed, and so these are wonderful remasters that have been done over a period of time to hear people, so that people can hear the records as we heard them in the studio. And there's going to be a third album later in the year as well. And it really isn't just in response to this phenomenon of the interest in a band that finished in 1967. And it's taken us all, it's a wonderful surprise, but it has taken us all by surprise.
Tell us a little bit about what, I mean, as you're talking through this, and you're so humble about all of it, and I understand, obviously your story is one that's filled with one-off moments and how did they and why did they and how could that possibly be. Let's fast forward, I think it's 2019, you guys get inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Was that...
Yeah! Finally!
What does that feel like in your head? It would, like you just said, for a band that quote unquote finished in that many years ago. Fast forward to 2019, and you're getting inducted into the most prestigious honor that a band can receive at this point. What's going through your head? Does it seem real? Is it fake? Is it deserved? Do you have imposter syndrome? What's your emotion around it?
Well, I mean, it is difficult to accept it, and there are so many wonderful bands. In fact, we were nominated for 4 or 5 years before we were inducted, so I think the first nomination was the thing that knocked me sideways. Out of the blue we were nominated, but then we kept being nominated, and I honestly felt we would never be inducted, but then we were, and it's just incredibly exciting, and because when the band finished in '67, we perceived ourselves as being unsuccessful. Remembering there's no internet, so we didn't know what was going on around the world. Later we realised we always had a hit record somewhere. We concentrated on the UK and the States, and it had got a bit quiet, I'll be honest. But we always had a hit somewhere, we just didn't realise it. So we'd finished and it had been really sad. I was devastated when the band finished. So to see the band being recognised like that, it is a kind of a validation of what we were doing all those years ago when we ended in great sadness, and it was quite an emotional period. To see that we were being recognised for the work that we'd done all those years ago was very uplifting and energising, and I think really helped with the present incarnation of the Zombies, and really wanted us to drive on and do more and more.
I hope that, and I hear your words, and I appreciate your words very much, and I think I speak for all of us as fans. I hope that can give you a piece of understanding of what you mean, what the Zombies and you specifically mean to people. You know, to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, to have the success you had for the handful of decades you've been in this business, to still be in demand today, to being at a point where you can re-release originals and re-release albums, and people are going to go and purchase them and buy them and love them and cherish them. Are you able to feel now what you mean to people? Or does it resonate with you at all?
I think in periods I do. Funnily enough, when I'm on a ship like this, because people are so kind and so supportive, I do get that feeling. But then I slip back into the old, when I get home and, you know, I'm putting out the bins, and everything, I slip back into that old, what can you say? You know, I mean, I just sit at home, I'm just strumming the guitar on my own, trying to write songs, and it's a completely different feel. Mm-hmm. But then when you get into this kind of environment, it does really elevate you. It really does. So I thank you all for that. It's so important for artists to feel that they're supported. I really do thank you.
And I'll let you off the hot seat here in a second. When people look back at you and the Zombies and the career, what do you hope they remember or feel?
Well, I mean, one thing I hope that they remember, or that they feel, that we always sang from the heart. You know, it was a very simple idea for us, that we wrote the best songs we possibly could, and we recorded them to the best of our ability. We didn't follow trends. We didn't purposely try and be commercial. Of course we wanted people to enjoy our music, but that wasn't our driving force. I remember Rod saying once in an interview like this, he said, "We never aimed to be commercial." And I said, "Well, we were pretty bloody successful then, weren't we?" But I know what he means. Our prime aim was to make beautiful music, and we hoped that other people, because we enjoyed it, then we hoped that other people would enjoy it too.
Has your definition of success changed over the years?
Yeah, I think it has actually. That's an interesting question. I don't think about charts so much now. I'll tell you something. There's a chart in the UK. It's called the Heritage Chart. It's the only chart that features artists classic artists had a long career that are still making new music. There's not that many, you know. And it kind of, they fall between the cracks in the charts. I have a record at number 6 in the Heritage Chart. Not the Zombies, me.
Sure.
I'm just took me so by surprise, you know. I only mention that because I don't think about the charts quite so much, except when I'm bloody in them. There they are. I think about them then, hold them up. Yeah, I'm in the charts. Yeah. But I think about length of career.
Sure.
And standard of performance.
Sure.
Can you do it night after night? You're only as good as your next performance. And it's so important. You know, I sort of think about how I try and save my voice.
Sure.
You know, before I do a show. I think of that. The quality and the length of your career is how I judge a career now.
I know I speak for everyone in this room and anyone watching back in the room when I say thank you for protecting not only the Zombies music, but your voice and who you are and your presence, because we're a better world for you in it and still performing and doing what you do. So truly, 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 thank you for all you've done.
Thank you so much.
Last question, Craig. How do you, and I know we're joking about you get home, you take out the rubbish bins, you do the chores, you do the things you're supposed to do. Are you the same Colin at home as you are on stage, or how do you separate those two silos? The Zombies rock star from the family member, the normal, from Neil, so to speak. How do you separate your professional and personal persona?
Well,
Or do you?
well, I feel I'm the same person, but I know I'm quite shy, I'm quite introverted, and so I'm quieter at home. But you know, once the old music starts, it all happens, doesn't it? You know, I mean, I let the music.
The curtain goes up.
Yeah,
The lights turn on.
And you're a performer. But I'm not like that at home. I tell you, you know, start playing the guitar at home and I go, oh, for God's sake, bloody wreck it. I'm trying to write a song.
Do it in the garage.
Yeah, do it somewhere else. We're watching TV.
What a beautiful problem to have, isn't it? To be sitting in a room with Colin. Could you knock it off? My goodness. Thank you so much, not only for being on the cruise, but for being here with me and doing this as always. So, please help me thank the iconic, the timeless Colin Blunstone.